Welcome to MacStories Unwind, a weekly review of everything MacStories and more. This episode is brought to you by Permute. I'm John Voorhees, and with me, of course, is Federico Viticci. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
Doing all right. I mean, this has been Thanksgiving in the United States this week, and so the news was pretty slow, but we have a couple of interesting things and some good picks to share with everybody today. So why don't we dive right into recapping what we did this week? Why don't you tell listeners about the MacStories shortcut icons and the perspective icons sale, because that's going on now through Monday.
Through the end of Monday, which is also known as Cyber Monday, because that's what what capitalism has created, I guess.
Right. They couldn't come up with a better name than Cyber Monday, unfortunately.
Cyber Monday.
So that's what we're stuck with. Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Two of the worst possible names you could imagine.
I guess we'll work with it, but yeah, those are not good names.
Black Friday sounds incredibly depressing, and Cyber Monday is just ridiculous.
Yes, we can all get into some hot cyber action.
Right.
In any case, the both the MacStories shortcut icons and the perspective icons are 40% off for the next 3-4. I cannot count. Basically, till the end of the day on
Monday. Yeah.
Yes, and 40% off. You can get them both at macstories.net/pixel, or you can also click the link in the show notes that goes to our articles with all the buy buttons that you need. And so just as a quick recap, these are custom icons for shortcuts that you can save as custom icons on the home screen, as well as in the case of the perspective icons, they are custom icons for OmniFocus Pro on iPhone, iPad, and the Mac. And I believe custom perspectives now also work on the web if you're an OmniFocus for web user, but you still gotta create them from an Apple device.
Right.
But you can see them on the web, I think. And I want to specifically call out the MacStories shortcut icons. So the bundle version of the shortcut icons contains 400 unique glyphs in 4 different color variations, for a total of 1,600 icons. I mean, it's even more ridiculous when you think about it for the perspective icons, because those are 400 glyphs with 25 different color variations,
right?
Which means the zip file contains 20,000 icons.
Wow.
Which is, it is impressive what Sylvia was able to do. But the shortcut icons I want to mention, because with the upcoming iOS and iPadOS 14.3, and the changes coming to custom icons added to the home screen, these icons will be even more useful, even more convenient to use. So if you're running the developer or public beta of iOS 14.3, you can check this out today. When you save a shortcut via the Shortcuts app to the home screen, and you give it a custom icon using the MacStories shortcut icons, and you tap the icon, you will no longer be taken to the Shortcuts app first. I wrote about this last week, I think. The shortcut will run in line within the home screen using Compact UI. Basically, custom icons will behave exactly like the shortcuts widget in iOS 14.3. Everything will run in line within the home screen, including interactions. So choosing from list or entering text in an input field, you will be able to do everything from the home screen without having to go through the Shortcuts app first, which used to be the case when we originally released these icons last year. Now, with a single software update, they're going to get so much better. And you can get them at 40% off.
Yeah, that's terrific. These are great icons. I use them myself quite a bit. And if you haven't checked them out, definitely check the story that we had on MacStories, because it goes into all the details and has all the links there that you'll need to make your purchase. But don't delay. If you're interested, check it out, because the sale only runs through the end of Monday. I had a story this week about Big Sur widgets. And, I spent a lot of time over the summer trying out different widgets, and a bunch of them were in my review, but boy, there's been a flood of them ever since. And so I covered a whole bunch of different categories. And I've seen a lot that I didn't write about. I wrote about the ones that, I really thought were unique for one particular reason or another, or that I especially liked or found useful. And on the task management and time tracking side of things, I talked about Things, Good Task, and Orbit. And Things and Good Task take a very different approach to their widgets. Things has a fairly simple widget, but of course, because it's Things, it's also very nicely designed. You can pick your, the list that you display, and then you can filter it by tags. Good Task has a long list of different options that can be customized. Too many to really get into all of them here, but you can really make those widgets your very own, and not just in terms of what information is displayed, but also how they look, which I know you've used a lot on iOS, Federico, and it's the same on the Mac. So you can really do some nice customization there. And Orbit's a time tracking app that is relatively new. It's available on all of Apple's platforms, and it takes kind of a simple Things approach, I'd say. It has only a couple of different widgets available, but it lets you do things like see what your timers are that are running. It works. All time tracking apps have certain similarities, like Timery, which we use more regularly ourselves. But in that you have some sort of timer for some sort of project and task that is running, and with these widgets you can see what's going on there, and it has the count up display so that you can see how many minutes have elapsed on that particular project. MindNode is another one that I took a look at. MindNode is not, as an app, one that works with widgets in terms of inputting content as much as it is one for accessing it. So there are a couple of different widgets, a couple of different sizes where you can pin a particular mind map to the widget so you can access it quickly, or it'll just show you your most recently accessed ones. If you use MindNote a lot, because I know people will do things like plan out their week or whatever it is, use it almost like a task manager more than anything else. It's really nice to be able to pin that there so you can get to it easily. And then the larger sizes of that one also have access to their quick entry system, which is a menu bar app that you find on the Mac, as well as another button for creating a brand new mind map. Beyond that, I had AirBuddy 2, which it's amazing to me that Apple hasn't done a system widget for the battery, but AirBuddy has taken care of that. Nice. AirBuddy tracks the batteries on your Bluetooth connected devices. So whether it's your keyboard or your trackpad or your mouse or your AirPods, whatever those things happen to be that are connected to your Mac, it displays a battery widget that's very much like the system one you find on iOS and the iPad. So that's really nice to have. Then let's see, there are 3 in this list that I did cover in the review, which I won't go over in detail now. That's Music Harbor, Game Track, and Lookup. Those are 3 of the core ones that I used over the summer. They're some of the best. They've been in development the longest. They look great. They're great, and they're also terrific for just quickly accessing information in each of those apps. One of the new ones that I like an awful lot is Reader 5. Reader 5 came out shortly after Big Sur was released, I believe. And it's a fairly simple RSS reader that, the widget allows you to pick your source. And because Reader has multiple sources, whether that's RSS services or its own built-in read it later service, you can pick any of those as the source that's displayed in the widget. And within those, you can pick folders or particular publications. So you can really drill down and make a widget that is specific to your interests, and even do multiple ones if you want to have different widgets for different types of information. I don't use this a lot, not because I don't like it, but because I'm in RSS so much during the day. I almost always have Reader 5 open on my Mac, so I don't use it as much for that. But I have found it handy for some of those feeds that are more like personal interest feeds that I don't read throughout the day in the main app. So, whether it's music or video games or something like that, if I happen to be in the notification center and I'm just kind of taking a break and checking on the status of things, sometimes I'll just scan through those headlines and maybe click through to one of those. So that's a good option. And then finally, Drafts. Drafts has, again, one of the kind of like Good Tasks in a way, one of the most ambitious widgets that I've used on iOS, and that's been brought over to the Mac. So you can either have a single document within Drafts that you can access with the widget, or a list of your drafts, or quick actions, which are things they range to quite broadly. You can access a workspace. You can do things like have markdown controls, various custom actions or built-in actions in the app. There's a lot that can be added there. So very quick way to get at the tools. The only thing that I think is unfortunate about widgets on the Mac, and the main reason I don't use them as much, is that they're hidden in the notification center, and so you have to click to get into there, and then because you can't stack them, you only have a handful that are visible without scrolling. So it's not as convenient, I don't think, as having them on the home screen of your iPhone. But they're there, and I've been using a handful, and I think these are all really good ones if anyone wants to check them out and maybe add them to their Mac. All right, Federico, why don't you kick us off with the club this week? Because we had kind of, I guess you'd call it a special holiday edition. It was weekly, not episode. It was weekly issue 250, which is amazing to me. I think
big number.
I think 25 was where I started with these. So there's been a lot of water under that bridge. But why don't you tell us about what you wrote about? Because it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I got this is the kind of story that that at some point, like, you start doing some research and then you lose control of the whole thing because it becomes bigger than you actually imagined. So it all started quite small. I wanted to have a different app for reading books on my iPad because I think I mentioned this before on App Stories. I wasn't exactly content with the setup that I had for highlights and annotations in Apple's own Books app for iPad, which is fine when you're reading fiction books. Like when I was reading Red Rising, for example, it's fine. I can just highlight interesting passages or interesting quotes, and I can find them later. But I guess since I'm reading two non-fiction books at the moment, I'm reading Cosmos by Carl Sagan, which I recommended here on Unwind before, and I'm also reading How to Take Smart Notes, which is a business book. I guess I didn't just want to save those highlights. I wanted to be able to highlight things and to take notes and to organize and recall those highlights. And doing so in books is effectively impossible because it just lets you save highlights and you can see them in a list and that's it.
Right.
And so I started doing some research, and I guess I started from the end. Like I started from like, what's my goal? And my goal, I realized, is I want to be able to read books in MarginNote, which is an app that MacStories readers will be familiar with because it's the same app that I've been using for the past few years to save highlights and annotations from PDFs regarding new versions of iOS and iPadOS that get released in June at WWDC. I've been using MarginNote. I've been writing about MarginNote for the past few years in MacStories Weekly. And what MarginNote does, in addition to PDF documents, it also supports EPUB books. And with those books, what you can do is you can save highlights and you can save notes, and then you can view everything in a special study mode. And the study mode is basically like a mind map embedded within MarginNote. It's a special mind map view where you can view all of your highlights as nodes in a map, and you can use drag and drop to rearrange them, and you can organize them by chapter, and you can add your own notes. And there's also an outline mode if you want to see them with an outline, and you can filter them, and you can search them, and you can export them to like a Microsoft Word or Omni Outliner or even Evernote. And so I started there and I said, okay, I want to be able to read Cosmos in MarginNote. And boy, was that a project because I ended up fighting with DRM. Obviously, books that you buy from the Apple Bookstore or from the Google Play Store, from the Amazon Kindle Store, they all have some form of DRM applied, DRM protection, which prevents you from just having a file that you can move around between different apps and different devices. And so in Weekly, I wrote about this entire process of figuring out how to de-DRM, so remove DRM protection from EPUBs, and doing so on the Mac. what kind of tools, what kind of solutions I came up with on the Mac, and bringing them over to the iPad and sharing some screenshots of my setup on the iPad with MarginNote. So definitely a different and fun story from me, but that's also why we have MacStories Weekly, because this is the perfect story for that. These kind of experiments, this kind of research heavy projects that we have every once in a while. I love to write about this for Club MacStories members in the newsletter. So there's plenty of screenshots, plenty of links, all kinds of documentation that you can check out. And it's been fun.
Yeah, it was definitely a different kind of issue. I did a collection, which usually, our collections are app-based, and they center around some sort of theme. This time I did a collection of gift items. And when I went into this, I actually had a really long list when I started. Just gadgets and other tech-related things that I thought make good gifts for someone. And I narrowed it down, and I picked 2 kind of productivity work-based ones and 2 that are fun. So on the productivity side, I talked a little bit about the Samsung T7 SSD drive that I got to run Big Sur over the summer, and the kinds of things that I think that's good for beyond that sort of use case, as well as a special light that I got for my computer setup that I've really enjoyed. It's probably been the biggest surprise purchase to me that I've gotten this year, where I kind of went out on a limb, thought this might work, I might hate this. In the end, I love it. So there's that, as well as the Backbone One, which is a controller for the iPhone.
So good. Yes.
Yeah, it's so good. You just got yours the other day. And it's a lot of fun. I have to spend more time with it. And then also my favorite little treat that I got myself at the end of the Big Sur review cycle, which was the Game & Watch Super Mario Brothers edition, which is something that Nintendo did for the 35th anniversary of Super Mario Brothers. I just love this little device. It's not something that I pick up and play with every single day, but it's got a really heavy nostalgia factor in it, and just kind of a fun thing, and relatively inexpensive as something you can get someone as a gift. Beyond my story, Alex had some advice for people on how to provide tech support to family members over the holidays, which, as he points out, is even more difficult this year, because especially if you're not with your family members and trying to troubleshoot things for them over the phone or something like that, very difficult. But he had some good advice on how to do that. And on top of that, as well as the usual selections of things that we have in the issue, I had some tips. One was about really rediscovering dictation on the Mac with Big Sur and my new M1-based MacBook Air. And then an issue I've had with ever since I got off the beta. I actually am not running the latest 11.1 beta for Big Sur. I'm on the actual released version of the OS. But when I removed the profile for the beta, it wouldn't go away. The profile went away, and I no longer had a link to remove it, but Big Sur kept suggesting that I download 11.1.
Also on App Stories this week, John, we covered the latest changes to the App Store. So the App Store Small Business Program, which we covered last week, and the new 15% fee for developers who qualify in this new program. And we talked about what this means for the App Store ecosystem, what it means for indie developers, for whom this program is really designed for. And we also covered some of the things that we would like to see Apple do next regarding App Store policy and the App Store review guidelines, all those sorts of things. So definitely, if you're an indie developer, I think this is the kind of App Stories episode for you, where we talk about the business side of things.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny whenever we do the recap of App Stories on this show. I always feel like it was like a month ago that we did that episode, but it's only been a week. So check it out if you haven't had a chance to yet. All right, Federico, this episode of MacStories Unwind is brought to you by Permute by Charlie Monroe Software. When you want to convert photos, videos, or audio files from one format to another, it's too easy to get bogged down in settings and get to a point where you're just unable to make heads or tails of all the technical jargon. And that's the problem that Permute solves, because it saves you the trouble of having to take care of all those details. And on top of that, it works incredibly fast. To start a file conversion, all you have to do is drag a file into Permute's main window or onto the dock icon and click start. And that's really all there is to it. It's fast, it supports a long list of file formats, and it uses hardware acceleration for things like MP4 and HEVC files. It has preset options for a long list of Apple hardware, so you can convert video, for instance, to a particular aspect ratio for a particular Apple device, which is really nice. The app can also convert individual files or groups of files, stitch multiple images, videos, or audio files together, convert uncommon file formats like WebP and SVG, and schedule conversions for later, which is handy if you're doing a lot of video, for instance, and you don't want to tie up your computer's processor. On top of that, the app can add everything to the music app. Permute has a special limited time deal just for MacStories readers and listeners of this show. You can get 20% off the app by using the link in the show notes, which is a terrific deal. And if you want to learn more, just go on over to software.charliemonroe.net/permute to learn more about the app, or check out the sponsor post that we have on MacStories this week. Our thanks to Permute for their support of Unwind and MacStories.
All right, it is time for our Unwind picks.
It is.
John, and I also have two this week. One is a video game. I want to recommend Hades by Supergiant Games. Now, this Hades is an incredible game, and I'll cut right to the chase. This is the best roguelite game I've ever played.
Really?
I am not... historically, I haven't been really into roguelite games myself, mostly because most of them, they don't communicate the sense of progress to the player. And I know that the progress is you becoming better at playing the game, but I also want to see something tangible.
It can be frustrating, that kind of game.
You know, and Hades, it strikes a really good balance of, giving you some permanent upgrades that you can carry with you, but also with the nature of a roguelike dungeon crawler, basically. Mm-hmm. So in Hades, you play as the son of the eponymous Greek mythological god of hell, basically, the Hades. Right. And you play as Zagreus. And for some reason, which, please, no spoilers, I haven't got to that point of the story yet. You wanna escape Hades. You wanna reach Olympus. You wanna spend time with the other Greek gods. And obviously, your dad doesn't really want you to leave, right. Again, for whatever reason that I don't know yet. And you got to fight through these all these different... it's organized in rooms. You go from room to room. These waves of all kinds of monsters inspired by Greek mythology. And it's an action game with some RPG elements, in the sense that you can collect upgrades as you go from run to run. Of course, all these different runs in Hades are randomized, so no single escape attempt is like the other. However, what you get to keep are some permanent upgrades for your stats, as well as the weapons that you can unlock, and you can choose the weapon that you want to use before you start a new escape attempt. And this game looks amazing. Graphically speaking, I mean, we're used to this by Supergiant Games, who also made Transistor and Bastion Empire before. Right. All those games look incredible. Hades is their best work yet. It looks fantastic. It's got style. It's got it's got this unique art style that's sort of like a modern reimagining of Greek mythology. It's like a mix of comic books and anime all in one game and one style, really well done. And of course, the voice acting is incredible, as per Supergiant's tradition. But what I really want to cover is the combat system. It's so well done. It's like, I want to say the same things I said about Halo last week. It's tight, and it feels like you can master the game within minutes. Mm-hmm. And it rewards you. But whenever you defeat a monster, it's a tense game, but it rewards you because you're getting better at the game. You're getting better at evading the enemy. You're getting better at combining standard and special attacks. And it's very addictive in the sense that I found myself on many occasions saying, okay, this is the last room I'm
Right.
going to play for this run. And then I'm going to, turn off my Nintendo Switch. But then I just kept going, okay, I'll just do another one. And I guess I'll just do another one. And suddenly it's like 4:30 a.m. and I'm still playing Hades. So it's a very good game. And I love this, how the story is progressively told from escape attempt to escape attempt. Like you put together the story piece by piece with these messages that you receive from the different gods from Olympus and your conversations with your dad. It's really well done. And also the 3-headed dog, Cerberus, is in the game. And yes, you can pet the dog.
Very nice. Well, let me ask you a question about this, because I put playing this game off because I kind of assumed it would be addictive, and I didn't want to get sucked into it when I didn't have time for it. But I'm planning on picking it up. I want to know, though, how does it compare to something like Dead Cell? Because that's one of my favorite games like this, and it sounds like there are aspects of this are very similar to that.
Very similar. Very similar. I think it's like an even better Dead Cells, I want to say.
Okay.
So Dead Cells has a 2D view. This has got like an isometric view.
Okay.
It has the same qualities of Dead Cells in the sense that there's some things that you get to keep as upgrades. Other things are randomized on each run of the game. But what I will say is that the story is more intriguing. The whole setting and the graphic style is I prefer this one, but that's a matter of personal taste, I guess.
Sure.
What really sells this game is the exceptional control system, and I want to call out. There's also an article on either Polygon or The Verge that we can find and put in the show notes. God mode. This is a special setting that you can enable, and God mode basically means that each time you die, your resistance to enemies is raised.
Oh.
However, if you get better at the game, it goes down again. So it's not an easy mode per se.
Right, interesting.
It's a dynamic resistance mode where the game helps you get unstuck by raising your resistance to enemies' damage, but that's a dynamic percentage that gets adjusted over time.
Right.
It's really clever, and you can activate it at any time from settings. You just hit pause, you go to settings, you activate God mode, and you can continue playing the game in God mode. It's really well done. So yeah, you gotta play this game and be mindful because it can be a huge time sink for you.
Sounds like it. Sounds like it.
Yeah.
What else do you have for us, Federico?
A new single by Liam Gallagher. It's called All You're Dreaming Of. It's a new song by Liam, which surprised me. It's a piano ballad with some really lovely backing vocals. And it's very much in line with the times that we're all living right now.
Mm-hmm.
I was not expecting, Liam has, it's not new to piano ballads, but I was expecting this kind of song from Oasis, not from Liam Gallagher as a single performer. And I was happy to be surprised. It's a really beautiful song, and it's I recommend it. Put it on your HomePod, put it on your speakers, and listen to it. Especially the final part with all the backing vocals and the piano. It's really beautifully done, and go listen to this song. I guess it's gonna be part of a new Liam Gallagher album. I really enjoyed Why Me, Why Not from 2019.
Yeah,
Liam didn't have any new stuff in 2020, as unfortunately most other artists that I like. So hopefully this is the first single out of a new album coming out next year.
All right, that sounds great. Yeah, I listened to that single this morning as we're putting together the newsletter, and it's excellent. So definitely people should check that out. I've got 2 picks today too. The first is the Taylor Swift documentary that's on Disney Plus called The Long Pond Sessions. And she performs the entire album along with her 2 producers. Do you remember their names again?
Jack Antonoff and Aaron Dessner.
There you go. All right. I don't know why I can't remember those names because, one is from the National and the other is from Bleachers. And I like both of those bands, but yeah,
Jack Antonoff is a Grammy nominee this year as best producer. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And it's good. They are in a house in the woods up in upstate New York. And it's obviously, been set up as a recording studio space for them to perform. And they go through the entire album plus the bonus track called The Lakes. And in between, they're just little interviews conversations between the producers and Taylor Swift about each song, what it's about a little bit, and kind of the process of putting this together remotely, because they did the entire album remotely, which was interesting to me as someone who works remotely, to kind of hear how that went for, someone like Taylor Swift, who says in the documentary that she had never produced an album that way. So definitely switching things up for her as well. My second pick today is a YouTube video about a McDonald's game. So it turns out that McDonald's of Japan created a Nintendo DS game with Nintendo to train their employees in Japan. And it worked with the Nintendo DSi. McDonald's created a special matte black McDonald's themed DSi that actually has, it's all matte black with a shiny McDonald's logo on the top of the DSi. And this game allowed you to use the stylus to do things like make a hamburger and learn how long to cook the fries and do all sorts of other things that you would do as a McDonald's employee in one of the restaurants. And what's interesting about it, I suppose, isn't so much the game in a lot of ways, because it is a training game. It's surprisingly detailed, and it's incredibly rare though, because this game was one of those games that becomes a legend in the gaming community that no one really has. And so this video by Nick Robinson is his quest to get his hands on one of these games, because someone tells him about this game. He discovers a French person who was trying to do the same thing. And then there are surprises along this quest, but he spends months trying to find this game and get his hands on it, because no one had a copy of it, and they were password protected. So even the one person in France who had a copy of it wasn't able to get past the login screen because it was password protected. So it's a whole, it's kind of an interesting mystery as to how to, find the game, get into the game, and then explain and figure out what the game is all about. And if you like game preservation, old Nintendo stories, a game collection and that kind of thing, it's a fun little documentary done in kind of a whodunit style. And it's about 50 minutes long, so there's a lot of detail in here. And I watched it last night and really enjoyed it. All right, Federico. Well, that's where we will wrap it up for this week. Of course, you can find everything we talked about on MacStories.net or Club MacStories if you're a Club MacStories member. You can find me and Federico writing over at MacStories.net too. Federico is at Viticci on Twitter and Instagram. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees, JOHNVOORHWS. Talk to you next Friday, Federico.
Ciao, John.